Hi everyone, I'm Lisa from Pink Holly Bush Designs, and today I want to talk to you about the types of needles we use for smocking. Now, when you're smocking, you're obviously piercing the fabric, so that means we need a needle with a sharp point. We're also typically smocking with 3 to 4 strands of floss, and the goal is to have that floss lie side by side as you're forming the stitch. You don't want the strands on top of each other because that doesn't give you a nice coverage with your smocking. We're using those 3 strands so that the smocking really stands out, and that's what we're trying to have accomplished here. So that means you want a needle that has a fairly long and open eye, that it can hold those 3 strands side by side. So the 2 choices I have here are an embroidery, or also known as a crewel needle, or a darner. And the difference between those two is, I hope you can see, is just the shaft length of the needle. So both of them have sharp points, and both of them have that long eye that will hold the different strands. And which one you want to use really is just up to what feels comfortable in your hand as you're smocking. I typically use the number 7 darner. It's how I learned. It's how I've been doing it for 20 years, and so that's what I stick with. The advantage of using the darner is you have that longer shaft to kind of help you line up your stitches, and I'm hoping you can sort of see that. See, this shaft is lining up with those 2 bottom stitches here, and that helps me know where I'm going with the next stitch as I'm smocking, because it is so geometric. So as I'm trying to space in between, I don't know if you can see here, but there's a pleating thread and there's a pleating thread, and I'm going halfway in between them, and I want to have all those stitches that are on that halfway row line up. And the number 7 darner helps me do that, because as I form it, you see I'm sort of lining up with right above the previous one stitch, and that's letting me get everything on that same line. Now you also can get what's known as a long darner, and here's another one of those, and you can see again that sharp point, that same size hole. It's just even longer if you want that longer shaft. So any of those would work and work well. There's a couple things you don't want to use. So the first one here is known as a sharps, and this is your general sewing needle. And if you go to a big box store and you buy yourself a package of needles and it doesn't say what it is, this is probably what you're getting. It is a sharp. And as you can see, or I hope you can, it just has a small round eye, and that's because it's made to hold a single strand of thread. This is the needle you use to hem or to mend, and as I said, it's for that single strand of thread, and so it can't really hold your 3 strands of floss. So I hope this helps you. You will find if you go to a big box store that the embroidery and the darner needles are usually over with the floss in that section of the store rather than with the sewing notions. So if you don't see them at the sewing notions, go over and look by the floss and you'll probably find them. Now when you're picture smocking, we typically use 4 strands of floss, and you might find that that number 7 darner or embroidery needle the eye is just a little bit too small, and so in that case you might want to switch to a number 5 embroidery needle or darner. The other option is a chenille needle. The chenille needle has that nice elongated eye, but it has a thicker shaft, and so that's going to make a little bit bigger hole for you as it pierces the fabric, that's going to let those 4 strands lie side by side and give you nice thick stacked cables for your picture smocking. For a chenille, the numbering is a little bit different, and you might want to try a 24 or a 22. I think this one that I have here is actually 20, but that's a little bit large. I would try the smaller 22 or the 24. And as you might have noticed, as the number goes up, the needle gets smaller. So the 24 chenille is smaller than the 22. The 7 darner is smaller than the 5. Thank you for joining me, and happy smocking.